Awesome. Well, hello everyone that has joined. Thank you so much for joining us and also for being patient with us. Let me turn my camera on. Thank you so much for being patient with us, and thank you so much for being with us for the Meal TLL webinar today on Introduction to Qualitative Methods. Rebby, could you go to the next slide, please? So we have a few quick notes. If you can introduce yourself in the chat, tell us your name, the office you're joining from, and your job title. And I will do it verbally. My name is Carrie Mao. I'm from ADRA International. I'm a technical advisor for Meal, and I will be helping host this. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being held in English with Spanish translation. If you're looking for the translation, you can click on the More options in your Teams, and then click on Language and Interpretation. I think that's what it's Language and Speech, sorry. And then you can click on Language Interpretation and choose Spanish if that's what you want to listen to. Next slide, Rebby. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please place them in the question and answer section. You'll see that right next to the chat bubble. So you can put it in the chat, but if you could put it in the Q&A, that would be fantastic. And then also, this webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording will be sent out, as well as the presentation. And if you have any additional questions for the presenters afterwards, you can always reach out to us to ask those. Next slide, Rebby. So just a really quick agenda. This is a 1-hour webinar. So yes, doing the welcome and introduction, the presentation. There is a breakout activity that we would love for you to stay on for. And then if we have any additional time, we will have a Q&A time at the very end. And now I'm going to hand it over to Nestor Mogollon to introduce the webinar and our presenters.
Okay, thank you, Kerry. Good morning, everybody. Buenos días a todos. The Meal TLL has been organized this in last year because in the idea to support the Meal people around ADRA network on how to use qualitative data in their daily work. And this is an introduction to qualitative methods. Probably later on, we are going to do another one more advanced. Let me introduce our speakers today. And the first one is Liliana Waldernur. She joined ADRA in 2018 in ADRA, Germany, as a program coordinator. And then since last 3 years, she has been working as a meal coordinator for ADRA Germany. Her background is social anthropology. She studied in Prague, Czech Republic, and she's very happy to lead us today an introduction to qualitative method. The second speaker is Jose Orozco, who joined ADRA UK in 2020 as a program intern, and for the last 2 years had been provided meal support to ADRA UK programs. He studied international development in the UK, and now he is excited to share the platform with Liliana. Without any more introductions, so I will leave the room to Liliana so that he can lead us in this webinar. Yeah, Liliana, back to you.
Thank you very much, Nestor. Hello, everyone. I'm gonna turn on my camera just so you can see me. Hello. So I'm very happy that so many of you decided to join us today. I will be also, I don't see myself anymore. Something happened, so I don't know if you can guys see me, but I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and start with the presentation. So here we go. Apologies for this. So yes. We would like to discuss with you today. We divided the presentation to several sessions. The beginning is a bit more introductory and theoretical, Whereas we also planned for an activity at the end of the seminar to have a bit of interaction together with you. Because when you think of qualitative methods, I think for most of us, what comes to mind is that it's interactive and participatory. So let us start from the beginning. What exactly are qualitative methods? Qualitative methods focus on collecting in-depth information on perceptions, judgments, and opinions of people. They allow us to ask questions that cannot be easily put into numbers and to understand the human experience in addition. Getting at the everyday realities of some social phenomenon and studying important questions of some social phenomenon, as they really practiced, help us to understand and know how actual human experience is. As you can see from my talking already, I'm focusing on experience and understanding and the natural setting. So these could be the three very important factors of qualitative study. How do we do that though? Is through direct interaction with respondents. So qualitative research can identify the cultural, societal, and household factors. We go and study directly in the setting as people live. Qualitative research methods are therefore iterative. It means that they continually refined based on how the situation evolves. We will get to it more, but when you think of qualitative research, you can think of some big questions that need answers and are open. And you don't have one specific hypothesis that you're validating in contrast to other research methods that you might know about. So with this big introduction, maybe we can tune down to what are actually some benefits of qualitative methods. Why would someone want to know all this additional information through direct observation? So we listed 7. I hope for your patience and we'll go through them together. The first is in-depth understanding. Qualitative methods allow for a deeper understanding of the context of the social dynamics and cultural aspects that influence development issues. They provide rich and detailed information that go beyond quantitative data. So, for example, when we have a project in health, we might be able to measure quantitatively how many people visit our health facility every day, but if we want to understand why are those fluctuations there, why one day some people come early, some late, and so on, we want to understand the underlying reasons, we want to know why, we would need to discuss with them and to talk to them directly beyond open, close-ended questions. By this interaction, by these observations with interaction, we get community engagement. So qualitative methods are an excellent tool to get into the community, to be seen, but also to know more about the people we serve. So they facilitate engagement and empower individuals to share their perspective, needs, and aspirations. As you can imagine, it's a big difference for a person to be asked a question about their opinion and to be asked an open-ended question of something they would like to share with us. So this is more of a qualitative way of asking questions, would be to have it very open and to let the person tell us their story without rushing them through the survey as we usually have to. The participatory approach ensures that the development initiatives are relevant, inclusive, and responsive to the local context. They would reveal us usually much more data than just closed-ended questions. They can help identify complexities. So our work often involves complex social, economic, and political factors. Qualitative methods can capture these complexities, unravel the nuances and interconnection among different variables. Qualitative methods are excellent when you're trying to do exploratory research, when a particular issue or a problem is relatively new or maybe not well understood. These methods can be used to explore and generate hypotheses. They can help us identify emerging trends and themes, which can be later validated through quantitative methods. So typically you can already see we always refer also to quantitative methods, and Jose later on today will tell you a bit more on that. But qualitative methods are a good introduction, and they are also a good method at the end of a research. In the middle of it, or in the middle of development projects, humanitarian projects, we usually do not find so much time for application of qualitative methods. But in the beginnings, when you're thinking of, okay, why is this going this way? Using simple qualitative tools can be very helpful. Then we can also evaluate impact. They can provide a platform for assessing the impact of our projects. They capture subjective experiences of the people we serve, enable insights into intended and also unintended consequences of interventions. When we let people talk to us in an open fashion, we get often much more information than when we have just close-ended questions. They are also process-oriented, so we do more than just achieve outcomes. We want to also understand how and why these outcomes occur. And qualitative methods are good in tracing this process, capture individual voices, document lessons learned, and they can also inform policy and practice. And finally, we thought to list the trust building. So qualitative methods such as interviews and focus group discussions can foster trust, collaboration, and relationship buildings. And this is, of course, crucial for effective work. Here is a definition by the, I think, most famous ethnologists, Denzin and Lincoln, and qualitative researchers study things in their natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. So when you think of qualitative things, you're trying to understand why people do that. What is the meaning behind doing what I'm doing? There is a different visualization of the same. Maybe some of you are more familiar with these kind of visualizations. Those of you who are anthropologists or have worked with qualitative study, you would see that this is quite a typical way of putting the same information down, but just to reiterate. So what could be helpful is that the engagement and empowerment of the people we serve through qualitative methods by letting them speak, choose topics, and providing them a platform to be heard also increases our accountability, especially once we conduct some qualitative studies, we feedback to them. It also provides impact, innovation, and evidence. So despite the fact that typically the sample would be much smaller than in quantitative studies, qualitative studies provide further information, nuances, and reasons why people do specific things. The value for money is actually one of the arguments that typically qualitative methods are not used, but when employed carefully and smartly, they could be even cheaper than quantitative surveys. They are scalable and replicable, so one can start small and can replicate the same approach in different locations, and they are an excellent tool for advocacy, campaigning, and social change. So all areas I think that are becoming more and more important also for us. I will hand over now to Jose. Would you like me to continue sharing, Jose?
Yes, please. If you can continue, it will be
Yes.
good. Okay. Thank you very much, Liliana. Yes. So sometimes the best thing that we can do to understand this concept is to compare. So as you can see in the right-hand side, you have qualitative, and on the left-hand side, you have quantitative. So quantitative research really focuses on numbers, how much quantifiable things. So how many children have been fed, how many water holes have been drilled, et cetera, et cetera. Qualitative tries to answer questions about how and why. So how has the water holes impacted the community? Why has there been children, why have the children in school been attending more often, and so on. With quantitative information, like Liliana mentioned before, we have large sample sizes. If you've done a baseline study or an inline study, you usually have to analyze data sets of around 300, 400 people, while for qualitative, you use a very small sample size. Focus groups, you try to do 10 focus groups of maybe 7 people, so you have between 30, 50. It really is completely different sizes. With quantitative, you go for objective, quantifiable evidence, so undisputable. So if you say there's 10, there will be 10. How many times? It doesn't matter how many times you count. But when qualitative, one day you interview a person, the next time, the next day, the person might have a slightly different answer. So things will change depending on, the situations, context, and so on. But it helps us determine the meanings and the processes and the reasons people give to things. With quantitative research, You try to use a standardized tools. So you have usually questionnaires that are applicable throughout the whole project or the whole area. Meanwhile, qualitative tools tend to be a little bit more flexible and adaptable to adjust to the context of where you're working. And finally, with quantitative data, you want to describe things. You want to say, this is what we've done. This is what, has been accomplished. These are the goals. But with qualitative data, you're trying to interpret the impact. You interpret the work that's being done in your projects or has been done in your projects. Next slide. So here, it's a little bit small, but you can go back to this once you have the presentation. You can see more contrasts between the two, just to highlight some things that maybe we didn't, we didn't mention before, is that, with quantitative research, it's statistics, right? So numbers. You try to always find the best way to find the result and replicate it over and over again. With qualitative, as you'll see later with Liliana will show you, you use themes. You try to find ways to break down very abstract data the best way you can. So as a quick example is, again, as you can see, number one, it says, how do cash transfers support education of children? You can't quantify that. You have to go and ask. You have to talk to the education office. You have to talk to the teachers. You got to talk to the families of the children, and each person will have a different answer. Meanwhile, if you look at the quantitative research approach, what impact do cash transfers have on children's school performance? You can ask all the school officials and all the teachers. They'll have usually the same result. The children reach this level in testing. The children have been coming more often to school. Attendance records, everybody will have the same answer. But for qualitative, the answers will vary depending on who you ask and when you ask as well. Next, please. So we've mentioned some of these key characteristics of qualitative data collection and analysis. But one of the ones that I like the most, and I think anybody who does qualitative research loves the most, is you talk with people directly. You sit down and you have conversations in their own environments. Sometimes when you're doing quantitative research, you stick, you have a paper in front of you, you're checking things or filling things in, and it's kind of a barrier between you and the person you're interacting with. Qualitative gives you the opportunity to put things down. Usually, some people would record the interaction so they can be fully immersed, and you just you talk with the communities. You become the instrument. So, like I said, with qualitative, you have a piece of paper or a tablet nowadays that you have. Here is just you and your recorder. So you talk to people. You are also have to account for that, and maybe in the later course with more advanced, we'll talk about the impact that you have on the research itself as being the tool. But it's also up to you to push further, to gain more depth, to analyze the context and the sensibilities that you have to have when interacting with communities. So it's something that I personally like, but you also have to be very careful. And qualitative methods are particularly oriented toward exploration, discovery, and inductive logic. When you're doing qualitative research, there are limits, and you have an objective when you're doing research, but you can push certain boundaries with when you're doing the research. For example, let's say you go to a community, you're talking about children and education, and you're sitting in the house. You can say, let's go to a school. You can move from one place to another, or you say, can you call this person to come and talk to us? you can be very flexible with the way that you do it, always trying to explore and discover as much as you can, always being respectful, of course, but the qualitative method gives you that opportunity. Next. So when are we using qualitative methods? So the first one is describing important outcomes among the target groups. So a lot of times we have our log frames. The log frames tells us, how the outcomes are going and such, but we can get more in-depth information, for example, with, identifying the level of productive assets and other resources held by community and households, processes through which resources are obtained and allocated. So you can ask community, your food, what food do you get at the market? What food do you get, with your neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. Gender and generationally differentiated roles and responsibilities, power relations, and different access to resources and opportunities. So a lot of times my experience has been that you have, let's say you do a quantitative study and you say, oh, this is a male-headed household. But then you go to the communities and you see that even though the male is the head of household, the women are the ones who have the spending power, for example. So a lot of those details don't come through on the numbers. You have to go deeper and find these certain things. Also, critical outcomes achieved in terms of food security, nutrition, and health status, and access to other basic needs such as water, shelter, and education. So again, the same principle applies. The numbers say one thing, but what is behind those things is always important to go deeper. Next, please. When we do evaluations, qualitative methods are very important. Sometimes it helps us to match project resources and activities to needs identified by individuals or targeted groups. It helps us contribute to understanding of beneficiary perceptions regarding project activities and dynamics of implementation. Helps us identify strengths and weaknesses of a particular project. So if we do a midterm review, this is what you do, right? You sit down, so what is working, what's not working, what can we do better? What do we need to stop doing, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, it is a very good tool for that. Gauge the level of quality of beneficiary participation in project activities. So you can have 100% participation rate from your beneficiaries in the trainings. But then if you do a qualitative analysis of what they have learned, what they're applying at their homes, then you realize that yes, they're going, but they're not paying attention, or they're going and they're not understanding because maybe the trainings are not in the native language. So these are the things that you can use qualitative methods for. And you can also identify constraints to project success and potential adjustments to implementation strategies. So a lot of, you think a lot about what you're doing, how you're doing it, but you just are very intentional about it, of writing things down and qualifying things, sorry, not quantifying. Next. Final project evaluations. So same as the previous point, but this is at the end. When you finish a project, you want to capture all the learning, you want to capture everything that has been done. Helps you determine perspectives of the nature of changes resulting from the project. So like we were saying, like what has been the impact? How are people feeling? Is this something sustainable? Is it something the community has ownership on? These are the type of things you can identify just from pure numbers, for example. You can complement quantitative analysis of project impact on risk and vulnerability among target groups. So we must remember that qualitative is not better than quantitative, and quantitative is not better than qualitative. The best way is when we work together, when we use both types of research and methods to find the best possible results for our projects. So there's always complementary between the two. You can also identify key lessons learned for improved design, targeting, and implementation of future projects. A lot of times we do so much lessons learned that we don't realize that it is actually qualitative research. So it is something very important that we need to do and use the lessons learned for future projects as well and programs. And finally, engage community capacity to sustain activities initiated by the project. So I mentioned it earlier. So is there ownership from the community? Are the right sustainability practice in place for when the project's over, for this to continue to be a success? Next, please. And then, so yeah, so we have to ask ourselves when it is appropriate to use qualitative data analysis and collection. It's not always the right thing to do. So we need to be very careful. So, for example, does the project emphasize individual outcomes? So are we looking at large groups? Do we want to see what the large group has done, or do we want to see how the mothers are doing, or do we want to see how the people with disabilities are doing? So we need to identify if we're looking at the larger picture, or we want to look at specific outcomes. Second, are the decision makers interested in finding and understanding the internal dynamics of the project? Do we want to learn from this project? Do we want to apply the learnings to future activities? Do we need detailed, in-depth information about target groups or project sites? Sometimes we have huge projects. We have maybe the whole country. Do we want to look at specific regions? Or let's say you want to implement a future project in a specific region and not the whole country. How much detail do we want? Like Liliana said, sometimes value for money gets in the way. How much money do we have? Because this is resource-intensive activities. Do we want to go big picture or small picture? And if you want to go big picture, go quantitative, get metadata, and go from there. But if you want to go specific communities, you go for a qualitative. Is there interest in focusing on diversity among individual beneficiaries or target groups? Do you, again, how deep do you want to go? Do you want to go mothers? And then with mothers, do you want mothers with children over 2, and then mothers that have just babies? It is really how deep you want to go with this. And also, what are the risks and what are the sensibilities that you have to have in certain communities? Are you able to go talk with women by themselves in their homes? Are you able to discuss with the elders and not the community? Are there political issues, religious issues that you have to take into consideration? How will your research impact the community? It's also something that you have to take into consideration when thinking about doing in-depth, detailed information research with qualitative methods. Next, please. So I'll just go through this same. So it's the same idea. Are we trying to go general, non-specific? Do we want to identify unanticipated impacts? What is it that we want to do? Do we want to explore what's been happening, or do we have already an idea of what we want to find out? So if you already know what you want, then you go quantitative. But if you want to see what you need, what you don't know, explore ideas or concepts, maybe the way you have to go is qualitative. And then, do we need more detail? Are we not trusting the data? Are the numbers hiding information? Do we need to give more flesh to the numbers? Qualitative is the way. And have we become bored of the log frame? Do we see the log frame every month and we see that it's moving up and down? We see that we've gone beyond our objectives. It's a dead document. Do we need to revitalize the project? Do we need to push ourselves, see beyond the numbers? If you do, then qualitative is the way to go. Next. And then hand over to Liliana for this one.
Yes, so we are in the middle of our presentation, so I'll hurry us up a bit, but we're definitely gonna do another one. We decided to list you some methods maybe and tools, and then in the rest of this time we will speak briefly about some of them. So most of you are for sure familiar with the interviews. In our line of business, we usually do key informant interviews, focus group discussions, and household interviews. Of course, these would be typically mixed methods. It wouldn't be purely qualitative. Very few of us go to the community and say, so what's up today? How are you doing? And have a purely qualitative data collection. More or less, we do semi-structured interviews. We will not be discussing these today, but we have interactive research tools on the other parts of the presentation. And one of them would be observation or direct observation. I think that's the most common ethnological tool or qualitative tool. We'll speak briefly about transect. I know some offices have been using that quite well. Calendars and mapping are also very easy tools that can be done at the beginning or at the end, of course, during, but typically at the bridging of two projects. Then qualitative methods are very nice also with flow diagrams, Venn diagrams, and then ranking and scoring. Ranking and scoring we will not touch on today, but just very briefly, I would like to mention now that if you want to know more, please reach out. Ranking and scoring is one of the easiest qualitative tools and a great opener of any interaction with the community. And even though it might sound a bit alienating in the beginning or complicated, we've had really nice experiences using it. So we will speak briefly about direct observation. As a tool or as a method in qualitative studies, it would be defined as the systematic data collection. Researchers use all of their senses to examine people in their natural setting or naturally occurring situation. This is just in a bit of a academic way of saying that, yes, we actually would go and live with the people, do the things exactly as they, and by that hoping to understand a bit how they make meaning in their lives. We would note down the observations. Everyone has their own specific way, but the data word would be describing the program thoroughly and carefully, including describing activities that took place in the program, the people who participated in these activities, and the meaning to those people of what was observed. We can get first-hand information about how things are actually done. It is very useful for observing processes as they happen. So if we are to do a direct observation, even on a short time, it's an excellent introduction to any community when security allows and when it is possible to try to behave and be with them in their own natural way of being. It really breaks all kind of taboos, even between us as professional workers and them as the people we serve. It brings us to a level in which we can do things together and exchange on it on a very human level. The other similar activity that is more interactive would be a transect walk. Here is a map of a transect walk. I don't know how many of you, I'm sorry I don't see you, but I'm hoping some of you already have had the experience, but what would be a transect walk? So it would be a systematic walking tour of the village or neighborhood with the local population, with the people we serve, to gain a common understanding of the aspects. So as we would go, we would let the people tell us about what are we seeing, how is the land used, what kind of soils are there, what are the natural vegetation, cultivation, and other production activities, but also, for example, about settlement patterns, who lives where and why. It helps us understand interactions between the physical environment and human activities, behavior, values, and attitudes, but as well about practices and skills over space and time. We can also use it as a method to triangulate data collected by other methods, especially when it comes to public resources, land use, social differentiation, and mobility and immobility of the communities. Transect walk is a useful tool to gain initial understanding of relevant issues. It helps us to build trust in the community by being visible. I'm sure all of you have had this experience. It can help us a lot in identifying hazard zones, evacuation points, local conditions, and commercial activities in the communities. Also locations of areas that may be of interest, such as religious institutions, sport fields, markets, usual places of residence. It also helps us to understand closeness of communities, how the definition between we are a community and the other people are not our community anymore, are being lived every day. Do people from one municipality go to the other? How is the access then, for example, to school or to healthcare? All this information is very easily observable and noticeable and spoken about without much of a need for survey. And very often, of course, partners whom we work with have this information available. But what helps is to sometimes have a fresh look, to go again after many years, to come back and see how things really developed or changed in the time, to challenge our own preperceptions. So the other qualitative tool that I wanted to speak about is mapping. So maps are also easy. Maps can have a very complicated function, those of us who work with GIZ, but those of us who drove as well. So we have all options how to create maps, and they are the simplest tool on available. When we do a transect walk, it will be very natural for anyone to start also drawing a map, or even in a workshop or focus group discussion, it's very easy to have people show us how they understand their social environment around them. So they also facilitate communication and stimulate discussion about important issues, resources, and risks. So maps are excellent icebreaker because one can already see what value is attached to what comes to a map and what doesn't appear in a map. Maps help to clarify complex relationship and enable a visual comparison of information. They also develop a shared understanding of capacities and vulnerabilities. How can we do mapping simply? On a clean piece of open ground, a group of informants are asked to create a picture with certain characteristics. So, for example, it could be really social mapping, it could be characteristics of the given place, and we could use greatly local materials that are at hand, lines with branches and so on. We could also design the map, the exercise in a way that different maps would be created by different groups. So, for example, women and men, elderly and children, and so on and so forth. We can divide the group according to our interest and then bring them back together and have compared the maps. These are some examples of maps. You can see we can also map spatially, as we see here up here, what's a dangerous zone, what's a safe zone, where the resources are allocated. You can have in the map a lot of information, but you can also have a map of resources used. So we can discuss what kind of resources are available in that given community and who has control of them, for example, as well. It's a simple and efficient way that requires very little prior knowledge. And the less actually prior knowledge you have about that community, the better it helps you, because it equalizes some relations that we have, the controls and powers we hold, and we can learn a lot from our participants and the people we serve. Mapping can be used as a tool for needs assessment, for project planning, but also as monitoring and evaluation. We can try to use that as well. Mapping enables people of all ages and genders to share, and we have seen that maps created by specific groups, for example, women groups, often illustrate resources, priorities, and interests and problems other than the maps created by men's groups. This is natural by the definition of how work is divided in some communities. We can use mapping also for vulnerable places or capacity mapping. That depends a lot on the program we would be using it in. But we can have where risks have worsened or particular vulnerable population groups live, or with capacities and resources, of local resources and capacities, as well as gender differences. So you can see that these are already on a computer, but one can draw it easily also by hand. And what could be questions when we talked about how to do mapping? So this you will see, I'm not going to go through all of them, but what are the approximate boundaries of the community to social interaction and social services? How many households are there? What social structures and institutions are found? Where are the community centers? What religious groups, ethnic groups? How does the access to specific resources differ by household or social group? So what are the water sources, for example? How do we get firewood? Which resources have the most problems or are harmful? So you can see, just by very open and broad questions, one can initiate a big conversation and get a lot of information about the specific community we wish to work with. And the last tool that or method we would like to speak about very, very briefly, I'm looking at the time, are stories of change. you will receive the PowerPoint and it has a link. Stories of Change, I know some of our offices use it to monitor their projects as well. So Stories of Change allow you to investigate the most significant changes that the program has brought about. It is important that these stories are gathered in a participatory and inductive way, and that they are not guided by indicators of what we as practitioners believe is important. The stories of change can be gathered in a number of different ways, and we can have in the link you will see how would be the most standard way of doing it, and I think ADRA Laos has been the one that has been doing it a lot this way. But the idea is that the community members reflect on the changes they have observed, and they come to a consensus about their significance, for example, through ranking. This way, entire communities can tell us what they consider to be the most significant change of a program to be. The guidance is then available here. And we are closing in our last 18 minutes towards the practical activity. So, Jose, I would like to stop here the sharing as well and invite you for the conversation. I don't see you, but I hope you are here, where we would introduce what exactly we would like to suggest that we do together in our activity.
Could you please share the last slide just so the instructions
Yes.
are on there so we can. So we're just going to do a quick practical activity to test if you learn anything today. Not just kidding. No, it's just a good activity to see, practice the qualitative analysis and also see if you make the difference between qualitative and quantitative. So you'll be given a picture. We'll go into breakout rooms. You'll be given a picture, and you have to look at the picture and think of 5 qualitative questions you would want to ask to better understand the scene. And you would consider, you don't have to write it, but you consider how you will collect this information. With the same picture, you're going to think of 2 quantitative questions you would ask to gather information about the scene. And finally, you would discuss with your groups what information you can directly gather just from looking at the image. So just without having to do any questions or research, what can you just do with what Liliana taught you is direct observation, pretty much. So that is going to be the activity. You will have a worksheet, and the worksheet will have this information as well as a space for you to fill in the information. Unfortunately, I don't think you can share your screen, so each one will have to do it on their own computer, but then you can discuss within your groups as you go on with the information. Carrie has just shared on the chat the link to the groups. So if you speak Spanish, please let us know on the chat. So you will not go to a room. Instead, you will stay in the main room with us. Okay?
Actually, really quickly, Jose.
Yes, Carrie.
I think I have to automatically put everyone in groups. If you speak Spanish, please come back to the main group, the main room. And then Jose and Liliana will be able to lead you in that activity. So I will put everyone automatically in groups. And if you are a Spanish speaker, please feel free to come back and we'll have interpretation for you. Great. Any other?
Yeah, sorry, Carrie, there will not be translation in the breakout groups. So
Great.
That's why.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So you have your link right now. So please click on that. We will have groups 1 through 9. If you are group 1 and 5, please click on the first link. If you are, the first folder. If you are groups 2 and 6, you'll be group 2, 3 and 7, and then 4 and 8, and then, yes, so on and so forth. Just click on a folder. So we will put you guys into breakout rooms now. And if you have any questions, I think there's a way for you guys to raise your hand or something, and one of us will go in there. Thank you, and we'll put you into rooms right now. And let me open them.
We'll give you guys 10 minutes to do the activity.
10 minutes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think the rooms are open and people are going to be moved to your respective rooms right now. We'll have to give it a second.
Can you hear me, Kerry? I think so.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, because I was assigned into another group, but I prefer to stay in the main room. But when I click leave the room, they took me out of the workshop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can come into
Funny.
this.
Seems that. So nobody's coming back. So nobody.
Well, a few of them are going to come back.
I don't
think.
I don't see Liliana and Jose here.
Yes. Let me...
Where are they? We are in a different platform.
They're in a different room, yes.
They are in the different room? Yeah, because I was assigned also to a room, to number 10. Maybe they are also assigned to a room.
Yeah, so they were assigned to rooms. And so the idea was for them to come back into the main room if they spoke Spanish.
No, but what about Liliana and Jose? They were supposed to be in the main room also. But they are not. They are not here.
Yeah, I just asked them to come back, but I think they're helping those that they're in the group.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I left the room. Because it was, I think it was Emily. It was, what's it called? Anil. And Liliana has come back.
Yes, I am here, but I can't talk. Can I talk? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear your lovely voice.
What happened is that when I pushed the button leave from the breakout room, I left the whole meeting.
It was sent to me. It was sent to me.
We seem to be not very Teams friendly today.
Yeah. Well, we always have lessons learned, so we can improve that. But so far, it's so good, I think. Jose, maybe it's in the same situation. Oh, even the participants also. Ah, you see, Kathleen. ¿También te votaron?
Sí.
Cuando yo hice clic, me sacó del taller.
Sí, sí. No creo que people haven't been able to get out of the groups that speak Spanish.
Yeah, I think probably they're going to have the same problem when they leave the room. They leave from the workshop.
Kerry, can you not bring them out?
That's a good question. Hold on, let me see. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry, I'm getting like all of the messages from each room.
Yeah.
Let me find someone who speaks Spanish. I was think room 4 maybe. Sharmila, I don't know, Sharmila or Rebby, I don't know if you guys can see the breakout room with the people in there.
I see the list of rooms, but I can't tell who's in which room.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see the messages coming from each room.
Okay.
Yes, I get the
Yeah.
messages as well.
Are they doing
So
okay?
I'm just trying to respond to the messages.
But is the message about that they have left they're still in the room, or?
No, they're saying like, can we go ahead and discuss the picture? Is there anyone here?
Yeah, everybody have to do it.
Let's see. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, Caitlin said, can someone put me in a group? I was with the AI note taker.
Oh, I see that Jose is here. Jose, they are in the main room or in the?
Jose, this is a different Jose.
No, Jose Aroskip is from Peru.
Yes.
I know that is he speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
So I don't
Liliana,
know.
do you want to try to lead those that are in this right now? Oh wait, but I think we lost Ernesto. Oh man. Okay. Yeah, Teams is not our friend today at all.
Oh no, one person is saying, I cannot access the picture.
Okay.
Next time we will back too soon.
Yes, definitely.
Rebby, do you remember when we were trying this out? When you clicked on leave, did it leave the whole entire
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I had to leave the entire webinar and then rejoin.
Oh, that's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that happened to me also.
Okay.
Send me the link to the worksheet too.
So can we put the picture, because I see that there are people here in this room.
We can't hear you, Jose. I think
Put a picture up. I'll do the one that we have to do here, and then just go through it quickly. This is group 5. Share this.
Yeah. José, ¿puedes escucharnos? El otro
Sí,
José.
sí.
No, hay
Ah,
otro
no,
José
no.
here.
Okay. Can you see the picture, guys? Yes? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So this is the picture that we have. So as you can see, we have, it's a still shot. So I would like to ask maybe a volunteer, Nestor, you can begin. What is one qualitative picture that you would like to ask about this picture?
Well, I can see, but I can see that maybe there are some drought here. Wide. I think what kind of pasture these animals are looking for, because it seems that it's dry there. It's not very green.
Okay, that was very good. All right. Let me
Also,
see.
actually,
I'll call on
Jose, do you mind
Yeah.
speaking in Spanish too? Because I think we have 2 Spanish speakers. Or
We have a
translating
translator
yourself.
here.
Oh, I don't think he's on.
José creo que estaba. Let me see.
Ah, ok, listo, no hay problema. Yo traduzco. O sea, tenemos, la idea es hacernos preguntas cualitativas sobre este lugar. Así que, José, ¿me puedes escuchar? José no tiene, está José y Eric, pero no pueden hablar. Igual, si pueden entrar al papel, ahí pueden escribir las preguntas que tienen cualitativas y cuantitativas. Así, si José no puede activar el audio. So, en el papel que tienen ahí, pueden escribir las 5 preguntas cualitativas y 2 preguntas cuantitativas. Una pregunta que yo me haría, por ejemplo, sería ¿en qué parte del mundo estamos? ¿Sí? ¿En qué parte estamos en África o estamos en Asia? Y específicamente para poder entender mejor el contexto, ¿cierto? Porque puede ser la sabana africana o puede ser las planicies de Nepal, por ejemplo. No soy experto en animales, así que no sé qué tipo de elefante es, si es un elefante africano o asiático. Otra pregunta cualitativa que podemos hacer es ¿qué tipo de comunidades vive alrededor de estos animales? ¿Son comunidades agrícolas? ¿Son comunidades industriales? Conocemos que en muchos casos los elefantes y otros animales chocan mucho con las comunidades, ¿cierto? Entonces, ¿qué tipo de comunidades hay aquí? Y una pregunta cuantitativa relacionada con esta pregunta es, ¿qué tan lejos quedan las comunidades de los animales, por ejemplo? ¿Están a 10 kilómetros, 5 kilómetros, etcétera? Lo que podemos darnos cuenta solo con observar es que lo que dijo Néstor, ¿cierto? Esto es un terreno semiárido. No hay mucha vegetación, el terreno está un poco seco. También podemos darnos cuenta 2 cosas, hay elefantes y búfalo. Creo que es un búfalo que está detrás de ellos. Entonces, esos son los ejercicios que podemos hacer. Si alguien es muy bueno con la botánica, pudiera darse cuenta, por ejemplo, de qué tipo de árbol es, ¿cierto? Entonces, identificar ya más la ubicación de esta foto. En general, en los proyectos tenemos más información de esta, pero pues es un buen ejercicio, ¿cierto? Para empezar a pensar. Otra cosa buena que podemos vernos es que es una... Ok, en este tipo de método.
Jose, we're going to close the breakout rooms in like 2 minutes, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Es una muy buena pregunta, José. Como nos dimos cuenta, los métodos cualitativos pueden ser muy efectivos y muy creativos y exploradores. Es bueno tener como una idea generalizada de lo que queremos averiguar para no hacer demasiadas preguntas. Entonces, si tú queremos hacer un proyecto de conservación ecológica en este lugar donde está la foto, entonces, ¿qué información necesitamos para poder hacer ese proyecto de conservación ecológica en esta zona? Entonces, ¿qué zona es? ¿Cuántos animales hay ahí? Y si hay mucha caza ilegal de animales,
¿Qué tipo de
etcétera,
animales se
etcétera.
encuentran?
Exactamente. Entonces, si bien queremos información específica, lo que tú dices es correcto. Toca hacer un framework, una estructura para visualizar qué es lo que queremos hacer, para no hacer tantas preguntas. Por eso puse 5 preguntas cualitativas y 2 cuantitativas, para que piensen bien lo que quieren, porque pues, si queremos, duramos aquí todo el día haciendo preguntas. Sí. Entonces, usualmente tienes una pregunta general, ¿sí? Y después identificas temas importantes que quieres identificar. Y como dije, la comunidad, qué tipo de animales, las distancias, los mercados, y con esas 4, ahí empiezas a hacer un grupo de preguntas. Pero sí, ese es el ejercicio que se hace con ese tipo de actividades. Y también el tiempo y los recursos que tengas disponibles, ¿no? Si tienes muchos recursos, puedes hacer más preguntas y mucho tiempo. Pero si no tienes muchos recursos y poco tiempo, tienes que ser más estratégico con las preguntas que haces. Hey, Carrie, maybe we can call you back.
Sure, yes. I'm also having a little bit trouble getting Ernesto back. We'll work on that. Okay, let me close the rooms and everyone's going to come back. And we are at 1 minute after the hour, just so you guys know.
I got 9 o'clock here, so
We'll start
You're-
with
Everyone should be coming back right now. I just closed all the rooms.
okay.
There we go.
Yeah, everybody's coming back.
Give them a minute. I think nobody else has joined for a while. So yes, this I do apologize for the this is the first time doing a webinar on Teams. So if you had issues with coming out of the rooms or opening the information, we apologize. I would encourage you to do this exercise. You know, you have all the pictures there. Do the exercise for all the pictures. You know, test yourself with your teams in your offices, just to, start thinking qualitative and quantitative, just to see, what you can come up with. Your answers again will be different, but I think it's a good exercise for everybody to do. Carrie, do we have Ernesto, or should I just translate that pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think we lost Ernesto, so if you can quickly translate that into Spanish,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Queremos pedirle disculpas a todos por los problemas que hemos tenido. Desafortunadamente, esta es la primera vez que hacemos algo en Teams y estamos aprendiendo. Así que les pedimos disculpas si no pudieron salirse del grupo. De igual manera, los invito a que tomen las imágenes y ustedes en su propio tiempo hagan el ejercicio de pensar en forma cualitativa y cuantitativa, de ver con qué salen, ¿no? No pierden nada. Y si con su equipo de pronto en sus oficinas quieren hacer ese ejercicio, también es un ejercicio muy bueno para ponerse a pensar y ver qué tipo de ángulos, qué tipo de información se necesita y lo pueden aplicar a sus proyectos. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else from our side, Carrie. If you could give us the next steps for the presentation and the information in general.
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much to everyone for being here, for participating, for staying on as well. And thank you so much for being with us as we work through our technical issues. We've learned a lot about doing a webinar on Teams. So thank you so much for your patience. Yes, the recording will be actually in the chat once it processes, but we are going to put this on the TLL YouTube. We'll send out a YouTube link to that, and we'll also send out the presentation with that as well. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and I'm sure that Jose and Liliana will be happy to answer any of your qualitative method questions that you may have. Yeah, so thank you so much again to Jose and Liliana. Thank you so much to Nestor and for the Meal TLL for hosting this. We really appreciate you being here, and we hope that there's another meal webinar that you will be able to join us. So thank you so much. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay tuned for the next webinar that we are going to